You're going to see tonight all the shorts in a variety of formats, partly because that's how she made them, and partly for reasons of a restoration process. So it'll be a mix of film prints and a few digital files. And if we want, we can talk in the Q&A about that, but I don't want to bore you about it right now. But I think it's a really special program. It's really among my favorite stuff I've ever gotten to work on, and it's additionally some of my favorite stuff I get to show from time to time in various contexts, and especially when I get to do it with you. And so will you join me here for a little intro? Penelope Spheeris. We're kind of like a comedy team at this point, right?
Oh, yeah. We've been doing this together now for a while. Don't get jealous, Becca. Okay. No. Where do we begin? See, what is the guy's name over at the is Mark Pogolachevsky? How do you say that?
Oh, Mike Pogorzelski.
Pogorzelski.
Yeah.
That guy?
Yeah.
Anyway, at the archive?
Yeah. He's the director of the Academy Film Archive.
Yeah. He was really cool. He called me up one day. Nobody can say his name. They call him Pogo. He called me up one day, and he said, "How about we restore the Decline movies?" And I was like, "You just think I'm going to die? I know that's why you're saying this. So no." And then I felt really bad. And then Mark called me, and he said he had a girlfriend that knew how to spin through film, and nobody knows how to do that anymore. You know, they just know how to. So anyway, this girl came to work for me that was Mark's girlfriend, and I'm getting there. Becca's about ready to throw rocks at me. Anyway, yeah, no, so this girl came in and she went through all my old prints, and we went through all, and she was really good at it because nobody can handle film anymore, and she could do it. We sorted through everything, and because Mark is such a personable, nice guy, the restoration process started. And then along the way, we would be standing in the vault, and he'd go, "Oh, what's this?" You know? And I'm like, some movie I made at UCLA. And he goes, "Well, can I take a look at it?" And so then every time we would go to the vault, he would snitch something else, right? And that's the program you're going to be watching this evening. I'm really glad he did it. Thank you. I'll see you in a bit.
So the first two films that we saw tonight, so we saw Synthesis and Bath. And these are two that anytime we've talked about them or we've done a couple shows like this, they don't seem to be your favorites necessarily. And
no.
Yeah, and I remember that when we at Ann Arbor Film Festival we showed them, and you actually we did the intro, and then you left, I think, to go get something to eat, and on your way out you stopped me in the back and you watched a little of Synthesis, and you turned to me and said, "It's a stupid fucking movie, isn't it?" And then you walked out of the theater. And then with Bath, I remember when we were watching the first print, you turned to me at one point and said, "Man, she really likes washing her vagina, doesn't she?"
Did I say that?
Yeah, you did. And you seem to be a little bit dismissive of those too, but I don't know. I think, yeah, okay, they're student films, but there's some interesting stuff going on there, and they're kind of cool, actually. No?
If I didn't make those films and I saw them, I would think the person that made them was crazy. You know? Because there's so many different kinds of films there, you know? Synthesis, yeah, I shot that little movie. It was my very first movie, and it was way too long. I had no idea what it was about. I mean, and nobody ever will. Can I cut it down a little bit?
I'll give you a copy of it. You can do whatever you want.
Really?
Yeah, sure, why not? Yeah, I mean, so that was your first UCLA student film, and it was shot on 8mm.
Project One, yeah.
But it's kind of a cool, stylish 8mm student film. I've seen a lot of student films. Even there were a lot of great people at UCLA at that time, your contemporaries and people before and after you. But this is pretty damn good when it comes to the first student film by a student at the time, I think.
I think I was enamored with George Lucas's, what was that one called? THX. What's the number? 1124. How many? Who's got the number?
1138.
That one. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think, you know, maybe I was inspired by that or something. I don't remember. It was so long ago. It was like really, really long ago. You know, people are different people in their lives. You know what I mean? Like, I look at these movies and I feel, as I see the different stages of my life and the different movies I've made, I mean, these are the ones that I made before I actually started making, feature films. But, you evolve and you have all these different issues and problems that you have to deal with. And either you get through them or you don't, I always say I should have been dead or in jail. I mean, those are the people I was, I'm not kidding. Those are, my brother's here tonight. He knows how we were raised up. We were raised up in trailer parks. And my mom was married all those times, and it was just total chaos. That's why when punk rock came along, I felt right at home. Because, chaos, yeah, cool, okay.
It's kind of carnival-esque
atmosphere,
yeah.
So it was fine. But, I'm really thankful that these films have been put back together, and I'm eternally grateful to you for doing it. And, I can't imagine that people would want to see them, but I thank you all for coming here.
So, the film Shit, I should just say maybe briefly, so that was one that didn't have titles on it or anything, and part of that is because we found it in sort of a not quite completed state, but when we looked at it, we thought, this is completed enough to sort of preserve and to just show as is. It's pretty funny. And
well, I really am so thankful that you did it. I forgot that I made it. Most of the films actually that were up there, I forgot that I made, and that you found them and put them back together is extremely flattering.
Well, but that one, you told me once that maybe was made under the influence of Richard Pryor, right?
Yeah, I had just started working with Richard Pryor at that time. My daughter's father, Bobby, who shot these movies, you see his credit, Robert Scheller up there, and he had noticed one day when we were on campus at UCLA that Richard Pryor had just walked right in front of us, so we went and talked to him. And Richard said he was there looking for some kids to help him make a movie. So I worked with Richard Pryor. Bobby and I worked with Richard Pryor for about, 2 years. It was before really Richard had gotten to his level of notoriety and fame that he reached finally. But yeah, I spent a lot of time with Richard. And I think that sensibility there in that film, it was just, having had worked with him. And later, I don't know why, I guess because I had some tragedies in my life, God was trying to cheer me up a little bit, so he's put me in the same room with a lot of really brilliant comedians so that I could laugh a little. We had Albert Brooks, we had Mike Myers, and so many comedians I've ended up working with. It's bizarre.
When I was thinking of watching, I don't know, and especially hats off to Hollywood, there's a lot of humor in both of those films, but it's always kind of got this undercurrent of something kind of desperate, something kind of difficult, something maybe very tragic, and that mix of the comedy and tragedy that you do really seamlessly, and also in a lot of your other work, even Suburbia and films like that, is something that Richard also was kind of known for in a way, like kind of undercutting a lot of the humor with a certain kind of harsh reality. And I'm wondering is that something you've been conscious of, that approach to humor?
Well, I think what we do as filmmakers often, is to work through our personal, problems while making the films. And I know I did that with Suburbia, and I probably, in a way, with Dudes as well, that was screened here last night. And I don't know, it's, you got to get through life somehow and have some creative outlet, I think, to handle things. Or I do anyway, and now I'm not making films so much. We're restoring a lot of things, like the Decline movies and everything, but it's funny, I like to build houses now, just because, because all the other phony projects don't work, so film projects, yeah.
Well, so I don't know, and hats off to Hollywood remain like two of my absolute favorite things I've ever gotten to work on, and among just my favorite films I've had the
hats off to Hollywood.
Well, both I don't know, and hats off to Hollywood. Just two of my
they
very
kind of
favorite
fit
films.
together good because you end up on Dana in the first one, and then you see him thrown out of the car in the second one. So you play them right next to each other. They work pretty well. I'm going to tell you what happened to him if anybody's curious, because it's not a happy story, but. That was the life that they lived. they really did live day to day, dollar to dollar, you know, and did whatever they could to make any money. And Dana was extremely funny and such a scammer. And to me, he was entertaining, you know. He lived in the dorms. I actually I got them a dorm during the summertime here at UCLA because they were for rent. So here, am I at UCLA? Yeah, but you know what I mean. Anyway, got him a dorm up there, and it was during the time of the Vietnam War where a lot of soldiers were sending back heroin. And he knew this specific mailbox that the heroin would go to, and so he would go steal it. Well, someone figured it out, and they put strychnine in there, and that's how he died. Yeah, and I don't know what happened to Jennifer. I know there was a time when I actually started making money doing films, and we had been in touch, and she was still walking the streets of Hollywood, and when I would see her occasionally, she was always asking me for money, and I would always try to do what I could, you know. And the last time I saw her, she didn't look too good at all, so I'm thinking she's probably not with us anymore. Yeah.
Yeah, but they're kind of immortalized here now.
I thought about that.
Yeah.
Thank you, because I mean, what characters, you know? I mean, back in those days, look how they dressed up and what they did, and that's just a lifestyle that you probably wouldn't have been aware of if we weren't fortunate enough to have done those little movies, you know?
That's what a lot of, like I mentioned in the intro, a lot of people that I've talked to that encountered, especially I Don't Know, when it came out, were not just blown away by the film, but holy cow, this is a whole world I don't even know about. And they were really thrilled and amazed to discover it through your work.
My sister, Linda, who's a very, very well-established, hardworking and brilliant set decorator, is working on the Gilmore Girls show right now over, you know. Anyway, so she wanted to come tonight, but then again she didn't because she's so embarrassed of it, you know. And then of course my brother was brave enough to come out. I mean, I don't know why I abused my family so badly. Even my mom, you know, she was there, but she's...
I was going to say, speaking of abusing your family, the film of your mom is incredibly loving, actually, even though, obviously, you've had kind of a crazy upbringing, like you said, and it was, I imagine it couldn't help but be sort of unstable, just with different father figures and so forth, but she really kind of came out on the other side of that, like this really kind of life-affirming person. And is that a pretty accurate portrait of her?
You know, I mean, my brother will agree with this. I was always jealous of my mom because everybody loved her so much. I'm like, how could I make people love me that much? You know, because everybody that mattered. I mean, that bar where the guy was dancing really badly with the shirt tied around him. That guy was a really bad dancer.
He's totally wasted it too, I think.
I mean, anyway, that was a bar that she worked in, and then that was the gateway, and then she worked in this circle. And, you know, I mean, everybody she met, everybody in the market, you know, she would go down to the joke she said about going to Save On or Thrifty or whatever it was, and putting the money in her bra and getting more action out of it if they stole it, you know. It's like everybody loved my mom. And I think the reason is because in her, you know, somewhat tragic life she had, I mean, her mother, my mother's mother, died in an insane asylum. Yeah, and she wasn't diagnosed, I don't believe, but she was probably either bipolar or schizophrenic, and she was very abusive to my mother, you know. So my mother had a really, really hard time throughout her life, but she came out of it like on a positive side, you know. And I always look at life like that's what we're supposed to learn how to do. And if I can be like her, that would be cool. I want people to like me like everybody liked her. You know? Anyway.
How's that worked out for you?
It's not so good so far. No, it actually, you know, the older I get, the better it gets. Yeah, because I'm not pissed off anymore. I used to be really pissed off, and I'm not. When you get rid of your anger, people like you more.
I think that's great advice. If nothing else, you came and got some great advice here. Are we doing questions? I assume some people might have questions. Can't see very well in the back there.
I was just wondering, what was your father's name in the carnival? Oh, what was your father's name that worked in the carnival?
Why were you curious?
Oh, because I collect carnival stuff and posters and stuff like that.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, you do? You're not making a movie about it, are you?
No.
Because I am.
No, I'm not making a movie about it.
Okay, good. His name is Andrew Spheeris, just like my brother's name.
Oh, okay. They call it.
What? His nickname was Curly. They called him Curly, but he was bald. I think at one point he had curls. But then it was, yeah. He was actually a pretty well-known wrestler before he started the carnival. Yeah.
And he was a bit older than your mom, right?
Yeah, he was 40 or so when he met my mother. He already had a family of 4 with this woman named Elizabeth in Arkansas. And when he met my mom in Kansas, she was 19. And I was the oldest of that second litter. Yeah. Come on, man, that's funny. Laugh. I mean, what is a guy doing running around having kids like that? It's so irresponsible. They didn't have birth control back then. That's the only reason I could figure. Yeah. So.
Any other questions? Right here.
You just made a statement that as you're getting older, you're no longer as angry as you were. I know a lot of times when people get older, they find more things to complain about and get grumpier. So can you explain why your anger seems to have diminished as you got older?
Well, that's a really interesting question. Thank you for asking that. I don't know if I can explain it or not, but it just doesn't work. You know, when you approach something from a position of anger, it never, you don't get what you want out of life. And besides that, it hurts you. I think anger makes you sick, you know. And I think that's sort of our assignment in life, is to try to work through all that stuff and not hold it in an angry way. And for me, I don't get pissed anymore. I've noticed that. I just don't get angry. And I feel so much better for it, and people treat me better. And it's just something I concentrate on all day, every day, is to not be angry, you know, and to try to, whatever it was that was making me angry before, I try to just use it as a lesson for what I could learn, you know, and make myself better. So, I don't know. I mean, my mom was happy and she was totally broke. I mean, you might think, oh, well, you made a bunch of money making those movies. Maybe that's what made you happy. Well, no. The money doesn't make you happy at all. I think it makes things more difficult. You know, Marie is here. Marie, she works with a very, very wealthy man, and we know what a lot of money can do, and it does not make you happy. And I mean, you have to find it within yourself. I think the first step is just to get rid of that anger, you know? Oh God, I feel like I'm preaching. Well, thank you for asking.
Right here in the middle.
Thank you. I enjoyed the movies again tonight.
Thank
and I
you.
enjoy you. The favorite movie tonight for me was about your mother.
Okay.
And she had mentioned about being married 9 times, and she talked about being married once when she was 69 years old. How long did she live? How old was she when she passed away?
Was she 80, Andy, how old? 83? Almost 83. Huh? Almost 83. Yeah. Oh, it was 88? 2008, yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay.
I think she was great.
Well, one time, you know, this, she was all excited. Did she talk about the cable guy? Yeah. She saw this guy climb the cable, Time Warner guy. He was this older Filipino dude, and she kind of picked him up, you know, and that was her boyfriend for a while. And we were going to Filipino picnics and shit. I mean, my mom was a total party animal. She really was.
There's one guy in the movie you ask her about, and she's like, no way was I married to that guy.
Oh, Bobby Box? Yeah. I don't know. She kept saying that she thinks he had killed someone, but Yeah, and my brother's shaking his head, yeah. So, I mean, we had guys coming in and out of, I mean, we live in trailers, you know, and it was like, you know, in and out for a lot of my personality forming years, yeah. And so it was pretty rough going there. No stability at all, you know, really. I mean, there was one, I guess one stepfather stayed around longer than anybody else. He was in the Navy. Yeah, I was always having to iron the white uniforms. Yeah, he drank a lot. Yeah, he was actually a total flat-out drunk. What can I tell you?
Also in the middle there.
I'll try to speak loudly.
Oh, please wait for the mic. We're recording.
Okay. Sure. Hi. I suppose my question is, you talked about your first two student films and like being slightly embarrassed or not loving them. What surprised you by looking back at these films? Like, what moments do you like cherish in them and I don't know, still really enjoy?
I don't really, I don't, you know what it does? It brings up, for me, it brings up a lot of sadness, honestly. Thanks, Mark. No.
Sorry.
But I'm glad that they're preserved, you know? But what happened, you know, well, a lot of sadness comes from the fact that those years are gone. You know, they're gone. They're not coming back. I mean, I sat there and tears were coming down my face, and I'm like, why am I crying at Jimmy and Jennifer and Dana, and I'm crying. And it's like, oh, because they're gone, you know? I mean, and I think it's the passage of time that we really spend so much energy trying to avoid even thinking about, you know, in our lives. And you have to face it sooner or later. You know, it's a reality. The passage of time smacks you right in the face, you know. And I cherish having the experience of having made the films, if you know what I mean by that. I mean, we were talking about Dudes last night. It was such a wonderful, even John Pryor was saying how it was his favorite film he ever did. He said that, you know, because it was such a wonderful time. And I feel really blessed that I was able to make films and have that career. Yeah. So, I don't know. I wish I enjoyed it more. I wish I cherished things more. And I cherish my dog and my cat and my daughter. You know, that's about it.
Hello? Hi, I just wanted to ask a process-based question. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about specifically, and I don't know, and hats off to Hollywood, your relationship to the actors, because as I was watching it, I kind of had, it seemed like it was fluid between being a script-based narrative and then these improvisational sort of documentary type moments. And I also started to see as I was watching it that there were moments where you almost embedded yourself in the film as the director, where I could hear your direction. And I'm just wondering if you could just talk or describe about your relationship to the actors.
Oh, right. Well, I think what you're talking about is what was happening back then in those days with filmmaking, you know. I mean, there was a point when the Skirball Center a few years ago was screening the Bob Dylan documentary, Eat the Document? Is that what it's called? I need a film expert here. Eat the Document, it's called. No one's ever seen it because Bob did it and doesn't like it, and he wouldn't come and talk about it, so they got me to come and talk about it, you know. But what I noticed about that film was shot about the same time as some of these early ones. Back in the day when we were just getting the cameras going in film school, it was like, we'll shoot anything. We'll shoot anything, and there are no rules. That's the way it was for me. There are no rules. I can mix a narrative with a documentary. That's okay. And that whole National Rehabilitation Center thing there, when it was my project too, we screened it here at UCLA, and I keep thinking I'm in UCLA. Why is that? Anyway, because it's the UCLA archive. So Paul Schrader was one of my contemporaries, and he was in the audience, and he said, he raised his hand and he said, Penelope, everybody knows these places exist. Why do you have to beat us over the head with it? And I'm like, no, Paul, they don't exist. This is a phony documentary. Darned, you know. But there were no rules, you know, back then. That was what was cool. And as far as the actors go, they were my friends, you know. They were just people that I hung out with, and sometimes I had a camera and sometimes I didn't. But that's what people say even about the first decline. How did you manage to infiltrate that culture and that group of people who were so closed off? And well, because they were my friends. You know, I wasn't infiltrating anything. They were just there. And I think that's also, I don't know, it's gratifying to be able to do it, and I think it also helps make a good film if you're that familiar with your subjects, you know.
Well, and both of those films have something in common with Decline, and it shows a real rapport and intimacy that you have with your subjects too. I mean, you can tell they trust you to a larger degree than they would just any filmmaker.
Yeah, I mean, I was offered at one point when I was totally broke I was offered $1 million to do The Decline of Western Civilization, the rap years. But I don't know rap music, and I don't do it, you know. I'm not into it, so I don't think I could do it good and well. And so I really literally turned down $1 million. So there you go. I know.
Down here.
It's really interesting that with your background, you wound up making films, and it'd be interesting to know how that happened. What did you do to make films, and what was your progress winding up in the UCLA? We are very close to UCLA.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah.
And also it's the UCLA archive, so yeah.
And so how did you wind? So what was that path you followed that you wound up here? I mean, there.
Well, I started out as an art student at Long Beach State College at the same time Steven Spielberg was there. He probably knew at that point that he was going to be a film director, but women never had that thought because you just didn't think it, you know. And so I was an art student there, and while I was there, I started thinking that the art students were a little too kind of like posers and phony, and I wasn't going with the art thing. I know I'm in a museum here, so I hope I don't get struck by lightning.
I hope you don't either.
Yeah, really. This is go Exorcist on me here. So the art students were I was sort of not getting into that very, very well. And so I switched around. I met this wonderful, I mean, teachers make such a difference in your life. I met this incredible teacher, Dr. George Falcon was his name. And he was in the biological sciences. So I switched my major and I started studying the behavioral sciences. And then I went to Irvine to study the behavioral sciences there. And I was more comfortable in this scientific world than I was in the art world. And then one day, standing on a hillside with a gentle Santa Ana wind blowing, there was a gorgeous guy named Bill Norton who was a director. And he said, you know, I'm going to go to UCLA because they have a film school. And I'm like, you're telling me, Bill, that they really have a place where they will teach you how to make films? And you see, if you think about it, the art and the science and the technology, that sort of thing, it's a good combination film is, you know, and the study of behavior and all that. They all kind of melded together. And so for me, when I found filmmaking, it was like I found a reason to be, you know. And it was a way to also be able to express myself and be creative and try to work through some of the problems I think that were caused by the damaging early years, you know. So yeah, that's how that came about. And plus, I was really kind of hot for Bill. It's true. And then so I moved up here and went to UCLA and found out that he was in love with this woman named Roseanne. And then they got married and had some kids, and so, but see, I got left out in the cold. I've never had a really good, romance record, but that's cool. And neither did my mom, right? But yeah. So anyway, so you never know what's going to take you down the path, you know? I mean, I ended up at UCLA and perfectly happy making films, stayed in the master's program way longer than I should have because I could make films. You know, I was the first woman ever to work in the tech office there to hand out the equipment, so I could get the equipment whenever I wanted, and I loaned it to Richard Pryor sometimes, and I went and, shot a whole bunch of little movies with it, yeah.
Well, and so I thought, actually, as a way to maybe close the evening, there in these various trips to your vault, as we were pulling stuff out and finding things, one thing, I think it was the last time we were there, it was not that long ago, really, we found this little piece, which was just labeled Boy and Crows.
And do you have any audio?
No. And I said, what is this? And you were like, I think that's my first film. But what do you remember about that?
Well, I remember that when, and you guys were still living down in Orange County. We lived we finally got a house there in Westminster. And when I started at school at UCLA, I would go down and visit my family and my mom down there. And I was driving, I had a camera with me, snuck it out of the tech office, and a roll of film. It was negative, I think, film. It's mixed? I don't know what it is. I haven't seen it. He found it, and I haven't seen it yet. It's only 4 minutes if you want to see it. There's no audio.
It's silent, yeah.
And
but we found it, and we preserved it, made a new print just in time for this show, so we could show it to you guys. Nobody's seen this since
I haven't seen it. I haven't seen it. And so, like I said, it's only 4 minutes, and you don't have to listen to me talk afterwards because we're out of here. But if you want to stay and watch 4 minutes, it really, I don't know what it is. You're welcome to, and I so appreciate you guys coming out. It really means a lot to me that you came out tonight.
Yeah, thank you all.